Welcome to the Green Transition Show with me, Dr. Francis Tuokuu. In today's episode of the Green Transition Show, we want to look at how changemakers are transforming our world. In many sustainability conversations, we often look at profits and the environment. We neglect the people or the community. So today we want to talk to a very special guest to understand how communities, how people are important in the sustainability conversations. With me to do that is Dr. Mycroft. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Oh, thank you, Francis. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Dr. Mycroft, kindly introduce yourself to our cherished audience and tell us why you are interested in the Green Transition Show or Green Transition generally.
Please call me Lou, Francis,
Lou.
and I hope that anybody watching and listening will think of me as Lou. I'm very proud of that, Doctor, but I'm just Lou.
Yes.
Well, I am a change maker myself, a green change maker, and I run a program called Green Changemakers in the UK. I'm based in Yorkshire, which is in the north of England. And my background is in adult education, but also in community development, in public health. So really, it's always been about people. And for the last 3 years, I feel like I've found my calling in this green transition space. 3 years since the Green Changemakers Program came about, where I actually met a previous guest of yours, Dr. Juliet Ataguba, who's a dear friend now. And since I have started to really immerse myself in this world, it's become my life. The climate emergency is impossible to ignore, isn't it? And it's impossible to deny with any logic. I've got a son. I love this planet, but it's grown on me that to have that just green transition, we need social, racial, and economic justice alongside environmental justice. It's really hard to face up to things. It took me a long time to face up to things. But when I did, I realized that we need to think and act very differently towards each other. We need systems change and we need culture change with each other as people, and we need mindset change as well. No one person or few people can fix it. It needs all of us.
Yes, thanks for that. If you are new to the channel, kindly hit the subscribe button on YouTube to motivate us to continue to bring you such insightful conversations. We are currently live on Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on TikTok. My guest is Lou. Lou, the Green Changemakers Program, as you mentioned, was founded to unlock what you call joyful change-making energy. I like that. Who is a green change maker, and why do we need more of them today?
I think a green change maker is, first of all, somebody who cares. So that is potentially all of us. I believe that nearly everyone cares about this planet, cares about people on it. And if they can just find their climate joy, whether it's gardening or walking on the beach or walking the dog or playing with the grandkids, that unlocks in us, that joy is what unlocks in us this idea that we can all change things in our own way. So a green change maker is somebody who stepped into this joyful energy. I call it potentia. It's the idea that comes from the philosopher Spinoza that if we can dig down into the fear and sorrow of life and actually find those joyful places, we can channel that into working with others to make the world a better place. Green change makers do that, but they also notice the things that get in our way, the roadblocks, the problems with systems, the glitches in systems, and they can start to call it out. Whatever green change makers are experiencing, they never lose that ability to be able to imagine a better future. But it's very much a collective thing. We can all do a little bit on our own, but we know, Francis, don't we, what we're up against? The big energy companies, you know, the people who profit in billions and trillions out of other humans and out of the earth. Sometimes we can feel a bit hopeless. So Green Changemakers is an initiative where that joyful change-making energy begins to translate into hope. Not hope as just some sort of passive thing, but hope as David Orr called it, rolling up your sleeves and getting on with the job. There's something really purposeful. And what we've learned is that we can train people to be green change makers. We can train them in change-making skills, such as futures thinking, curation, how to influence people, and that systems awareness that begins to shift the constraints around us.
You specialize in systems and cultural change. Why do many sustainability initiatives fail? And what does it take to create a lasting transformation?
This is so hard, I think, Francis, because initiatives failed because we caught up in old systems and structures that were built for a different time. Hierarchies, rules, processes. And actually, what's difficult is that some of them are so familiar that we can't see them anymore. We just accept capitalism, for example. You know, we accept the neoliberalism that underpins that capitalism. So what happens when a new initiative starts up and people are full of joy and energy is that we slap a KPI on it, we squeeze the joy out of it, we make it subject to bureaucracy and monitoring, so it constrains its growth, but the energy leaks away. And we find this in our organizations. There are so many good intentions. Things start up with a burst of energy, and then they just fizzle out because the day job is just absolutely relentless. I think that's one part of it. So that's why looking at the systems and seeing where we can change the things we've got power to change is so important. But there's something cultural as well. So I work mainly, but not only, in further education, post-16 education here in the UK. And within our colleges, we have been infantilized for so long by the government and then by, you know, I'm not blaming leaders here, because leaders have to develop systems that provide what the government wants. But at every layer of the hierarchy, we've got to be obedient. We've got to do what we're told. And we lose that belief that we can think and act for ourselves. Many people do not believe they have any kind of agency. And we found that on the Green Changemakers Program, when people, Juliet and others, came through the door. And some of them, like Juliet, were full of that change-making power. And others were like, well, this is great, but, you know, what can we do? You know, we've tried, you know, we've failed. So that's why we enable people, we help them, we teach them how to step into that power in community with others, because they can't do it on their own. But at the end of the day, we are going to need those systems to change. Otherwise, that power, those people can't flourish.
Yeah, Lou, your work is grounded on thinking environment, right? And what is it? What is thinking environment? And how can improving the way people think lead to better environmental and organizational outcomes?
Well, the thinking environment is it's a process for working with people, for listening to people, and for doing your best independent thinking. A set of processes, really. And it was founded 50 years ago by a woman called Nancy Klein. So you can read her books. Her book called The Promise That Changes Everything is all about the thinking environment. And it seems very simple, it seems, oh, this is just what we do anyway, but it is really radical. And I first trained in it 30 years ago when I was expecting my son. So it's my deepest practice and the practice that really have shaped my life and my work around. I raised my son in a thinking environment. But it is, sorry, go on, Francis.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead,
So
please.
so it's a very so for example, in a meeting, you know what it's like. The people with the most power have the most airspace. Some people never say anything. They're not really present, especially when we can meet online and be checking our emails at the same time. The thinking environment promises that you won't be interrupted. And that's quite challenging to power, isn't it? Because everybody gets chance to think for themselves and they won't even have their silence interrupted. What I love about it is how precise it is. And it saves time because as well as listening to others, you also have to listen to yourself, and that stops you being repetitive. And I think it's so effective because it strips out the noise from our meetings and conversations. When we know that we're being heard, we can be direct and succinct because we're not just saying words, and our words land better. So it leads to better decision making, especially if we get the right people in the room. And by that, I mean perspectives, identities, lived experiences that are often marginalized and dismissed. It builds trust. It releases new ideas and this joyful potential energy. And Green Changemakers call it the thing that changes things. It makes you pause.
This is the Green Transition Show. My guess is Lou. Lou is a green change maker based in the United Kingdom or the UK. Lou, you also describe your approach as direct yet kind, or what you call radically candid, right? How can leaders balance accountability, empathy, and honest conversations to drive meaningful change?
I love some of the work of Brene Brown, who's a shame and empathy researcher. And she always talks about clear being kind. And you just asked me about the thinking environment, and the thinking environment is a great way of being clear. So if you're clear with somebody, then it is kind, isn't it? And thinking about this led me to Kim Scott's model of radical candor. And I think this should be a must for everybody, but especially leaders. So Kim Scott used to run Google. I think she was the ops manager for Google. So loads of experience of managing people. And in her model, if you imagine 4 quadrants, where we care personally and we challenge directly, that balance is what she calls radical candor or being radically candid. And this will make you smile, Francis, because when I was first teaching this, I was talking about radical candor and somebody misheard me and thought I said radical panda, as in the black and white bear. So I sometimes do call it radical panda. What happens often, and I think happens often in education, is that we care so much that we're not clear about the message. So if somebody needs to be told that they're doing something wrong, they need to be told in a way that they can understand it. Sometimes we go around the houses, as we say in Yorkshire, so that somebody comes away thinking, well, I don't know what they said there, and they carry on making the same mistakes. So that doesn't work. But sometimes equally, we don't challenge because we don't care. We talk about people behind their backs. It becomes a toxic environment. And of course, in some environments, sad to say, there is still the out and out bullying of, just challenge without any care. So this idea of radical candor, how can I practice kindness, but be as clear as possible about what it is that needs to be said? Trust is built in that way. I do find that tough love is something that I've learned how to do, and that people appreciate it. I don't find that anybody falls out with me or resents it, as long as the message lands kindly. I think what the part of the problem is, Francis, we don't take the time to have those conversations. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. We usually don't, we pay very little attention to such conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is difficult, but if you communicate that kindness
Yeah.
and it's really sincere, then I really think that people can hear. I would
Exactly.
also say, though, that when we're in a workplace or some culture where we have a culture of appreciating one another, noticing what's good and saying it,
Yes,
it makes it easier then to challenge, doesn't it? Because that trust has built up. And
exactly.
and so if somebody challenges me and it's in that trust environment, I don't think, oh no, they really don't like me. I think, actually, I know they really respect me. So there's something in this. I need to listen to what they say.
Yes. And my advice to many corporations, many businesses, particularly mining companies and energy companies, has always been that, as much as they have licenses to operate in a particular community, it is important to listen to the needs of the people, because at the end of the day, they have to make profit, but the people also have to benefit from their resources, right? So that's what in corporate sustainability we call that social license. Corporations need that social license to operate. So having the legal license alone is not enough. That social license is also important. And how do they get that social license? They can get that through the community by listening to the people, by listening to the needs of the people, asking them what their needs are, and helping them to achieve those needs or those objectives. So it is important to always have that listening ear, listen to people, listen to their problems, and try to find solutions to those problems. It is important. At the end of the day, it is win-win, and every business must bring win-win outcomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about information. It's about being appropriate in the local context. We nobody can know that stuff unless you get the right people in the room,
Yes.
because often the people making the decisions all look the same, all sound the same,
Yeah.
all come from the same sort of background. And unless we actually, find ways of meaningfully involving the community, you're quite right. A lot of money gets invested in things which are doomed to fail.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's good business sense as well
Yes.
as being socially ethical.
Exactly, exactly. So you have over 30 years of experience in education, public health, coaching, and facilitation. I've read a couple of your work, and I was really impressed. What have you learned about helping individuals and organizations move from good intentions to real action? Because having good intentions alone is not enough, but real action is what is
Yeah.
needed. So what have you learned over the years?
Well, first of all, thank you for that, Francis. It's
Yeah.
lovely to know that you have read some of my stuff. And actually, your research for our second session together has been wonderful. The questions
Okay.
you have sent me have just really opened up my thinking. It's important to recognize that most people, nearly everybody, has good intentions. However, that plays out. I'd never deny it, and it's really important to always recognize it. I think in most cases, leaders genuinely believe they're leading cultures that align with the values of their website, of their mission. Of course, I work mostly in public service. You would like to think that everybody goes into public service with good intentions. Maybe not quite everybody,
Yeah.
but you'd like to think that. But like I said before, they fizzle out because attention isn't paid to the culture of the organization or the mindset of individuals. I think we're still working with these old patterns of leadership where we believe we can mandate things from the top and they will just happen. We're still working with the old systems. There's nothing wrong with being held to account for public money. That's absolutely right. And that should always happen, that accountability. But that's all we do. And it sets up those cultures of compliance that only serve a certain set of demands. So that means that when something existential comes along, the climate emergency, biodiversity emergency, something so existential that humans have never had to deal with it before, we don't have a KPI for it and we don't know what to do. Honestly and truly, what I have learned is that to every question, community is probably always the answer. I've learned that we need to pause if we're going to think together about doing anything differently. When we're rushing along at 100 miles an hour, there is no opportunity to dream, to think of anything new. When we're exhausted all the time by the demands of capitalism, we can't dream, we can't think. So I'm going to come back to the thinking environment here and say that there isn't a piece of work that I do where the thinking environment is not in there somewhere, and that maybe the most important thing that I ever say to the people that I work with is just pause. Just pause. Pause so you can notice. Pause so you can think. Pause so you can dream. Just slow down. Let's take a moment. Right. What question do we need to ask ourselves? And that's how I think we move from good intentions to sustainable action, because out of that pausing, out of those really fine questions, that joyful potential, that change-making energy, those ideas have space. And then we start to have momentum. There's work involved with getting other people on board, with influencing the systems, but that's where the momentum begins.
Yeah. Community building is central to your work. And you emphasize that throughout the answers you provided. Why is creating strong communities just as important as developing new technologies or policies for the green transition?
So I'm here in England, in the north of England, which probably most of the world will see as quite a cold and wet country. And we have wildfires. And we have wildfires that are out of control. And in a few months' time, we'll probably have floods where people lose their houses. Now, we are relatively rich as a country compared to other countries on this earth. And probably for a few years to come, we can afford to put that right after it's happened. But the fact is, fire and flood, they are here in England. They are certainly, and much worse, all over the world. Equally, war, genocide, people fleeing from one country to another, all of that is happening for historical reasons, for reasons of climate change, for reasons of biodiversity loss. That is real, and it's present, and it's in our lives. Yes, we need new technologies, but when this fire comes, when this flood comes, when this war comes, it's only as community that we'll get through. One of the first things we did with Green Changemakers was we loved the sustainability goals, the SDGs, but they weren't as useful to us as a piece of research called 15 Green Skills. And that does include the technology side of things. It includes leadership and systems. It includes skills like empathy and how we work together, but it also includes really practical skills. We need people in our communities who can build shelter, who can sanitize water, who can forage and preserve food, who can grow food, who can look after children, who can, help keep people clean and healthy. We need those skills. And I think certainly here in England, some people are starting to recognize that. They're teaching the old skills of building to retrofit houses so that they are more resilient to the fire and the flood. People are learning to make things and remake things without using plastic. We can only do that in community and by learning the skills from one another. So that's one level. At the same time, of course, we need people who can use the new technology to harness green energy, for example. But that's got to be a balance. And I do believe that it's in people working together. And my community development training taught me this, and my experience taught me this. When you start working on something with some other people, you start chatting, you start talking, don't you, Francis? And then you're saying, have you noticed that milk is getting really expensive? What's that about? Well, I read that it was about, and is it about that? And you start to problematize and understand the politics, the economics, the racism, the unfairness, the inequality of the things that are happening. So community, for all of those reasons, is essential. I think for humankind, nobody has the answers to this. So community allows us to gather those different perspectives and perhaps find some new ways forward. What do you think? Is community important to you as well in the same way?
Yeah, it's very important. Community is very
Yeah,
central to the work that I do. Like I previously mentioned, you cannot ignore community even in businesses because it plays very critical role. Even if you have the legal license to operate, like I said in my previous answer, you still need that social license to operate, right? So in all
yeah,
that we do, community is central. And in environmental conversations, all of us have a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play in dealing with our environmental problems, and community plays a central role in doing that. So in all my work, I go to the community, I talk to them. I I I don't. It's not my work is not kind of bureaucratic process. It is community centered, where I go to the community, talk to the communities about their needs, talk to them about solutions. So they are community oriented. The solutions, the problems, as well as the solutions are within the
yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I agree.
Because if you if it is a top-down bureaucratic process, it means that you are talking to leaders, you are talking to politicians, you are talking to academics, but it is important to get those solutions from the communities as well. It is not all the time that academics or bureaucrats have solutions to all our problems or to all
Yeah,
our answers. The solutions are within the community. And so I usually go to the community, talk to the chiefs and opinion leaders, talk to youth groups, talk to women groups about a problem and find solutions from within the community. And that's how I work. That's how my work is centered on.
yeah. No, me too. Absolutely, absolutely. Together, we'll find the answers.
Exactly. Exactly. If you are watching us, and I'm sure you are enjoying the conversation, this is the Green Transition Show. My guest is Lou. Lou is based in England, the United Kingdom. We are discussing how green change makers are transforming our world. If you are interested in our conversation, kindly hit the subscribe button on YouTube. This will motivate us to continue to bring you such insightful conversations. You can also share, comment, and like our videos. You can also follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and on LinkedIn. We are currently live on Facebook. Many people, Lou, you've partly answered this question, but I want you to emphasize more on it. Many people feel overwhelmed by climate change and environmental challenges. How can we inspire hope, build momentum, and empower ordinary people to become change makers or green change makers?
I mean, the worst place to start, Francis, is by frightening people even more. And something I see in the education space in post-16 education in the UK is we must educate people about the climate emergency. there's a place for that. But if that's a starting point, people are never going to find the hope that they need. The starting point is what's your joy? What's the joy you find in living on this planet? And what skills, what hidden talents do you have? As in the last question, can you grow food? Can you fix things? Those valuing those practical skills and emotional skills that people have is really important because it helps everyone see themselves as a green change maker. If you want the facts, in the UK, there's a film which is being shown in communities around the UK called The People's Climate Emergency Briefing. So that's all anybody needs. And obviously, we need the experts, the climate scientists to help with very specific technical things. But my job, I see it as helping people dig into why they love life on this planet, what skills they have to bring, what ideas they have for the future. And then my job is to help them feel powerful enough to together do something about it.
Looking at Africa and other developing countries, what opportunities do you see for communities, businesses, and young people to lead the global green transition?
I really want to say at first, Francis, and make it really clear, my generation, I'm 60, and the generations that went before have caused this problem. So wherever young people are in the world, we can't sit back and leave them to solve it all. But we must stand back, step back, and let them lead the solutions, bring in all of our skills and our experience only where they're needed. And I would say it's absolutely the same when we come to think about the way the global north is, continuing to ignore the impact of generations of colonization, colonialization on global majority people and their descendants. But yet there are skills in the global north that can join with skills in global majority countries. Again, it's a big community, isn't it, to work together. So just always keeping in my mind that environmental justice is racial, social, economic justice. I can't fix those problems, but I can keep shouting about them. So where there are skills in my generation, in the global north, is in enabling young people to step into their own leadership, using our skills to enhance and bring out that leadership potential of young people, particularly people in developing regions. But how we work with people is really important, not patronizing, not infantilizing. I am over all the white people who, go to save others. We've got to get beyond that and humbly, generously offer the skills we've had in order to work as equals with young people and people in the rest of the world. Sustainable leadership, I think, is generous leadership, is humble leadership. And our mutual friend, Juliet Ataguba, she's just one of the people who does that, generous leadership. Even as she's raising a family in England, her work is continuing in Ghana. So I would love to, as we establish Green Changemakers as a social enterprise, I would love to find ways of sharing that learning, sharing our skills with young people, communities and businesses across the world. That's like phase 2.
So what you're essentially saying is that it should be partnership between the global north and the global south, and not necessarily the global north going to the global south to save the people who are hungry, to save the people who are in need. But that partnership, it should be a partnership between the global north and the global south. Yes, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
If you were advising governments, universities, and businesses, what are the 3 most important changes they should make to develop the next generation of green change makers?
I really enjoyed thinking about this question, and I need to put myself more into those spaces to give this answer, Francis. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for the
Yeah.
question. Number one, create opportunities to think together as equals. This is where the thinking environment comes back in. Looking around the spaces you lead and question who isn't there. Look at your conference panel. Who's not on that conference panel? Why is it all the white faces again? What perspectives and lived experiences are we missing out on? I don't know about other countries, but certainly in the UK, the environmental space is very white, it's very middle class, and there's a reason for that, and that has to change. That's number one. Number two, stop ignoring the climate emergency just because you don't have a KPI for it. This is for public servants in particular, because we are given our KPIs essentially. We're given an achievement rate and, and all of that sort of thing. Together, we need to develop metrics for the things that matter. Simon Sinek says this. We have all these KPIs, but we don't have KPIs. We don't have metrics for the things that matter. Trust, agency, hope. And then three, fund programs that work with people, Stop seeing humans as economic units. Stop seeing the earth as a resource to be exploited. I think yesterday, Francis, wasn't that the day at which the earth had given all it can give for the whole year? And so everything we take from it now is like stolen or borrowed or something like that. So making that mental link between social, racial justice and environmental justice. And actually, there is so much money spent on mindless tech. Not that we don't need tech, and I wouldn't be talking with you now if we didn't have technology. But there's billions spent on stuff that just gets wasted. There's billions spent in the public sector on staff development that's just the same old rubbish. To prove that you're more innovative, work with people, spend that money on working with people as equals, thinking together.
Audience, our viewing audience, who are with us on this show, if they could take just one action this week to become a more effective change maker, what would you encourage them to do? And what gives you hope for the future?
Thank you. First thing, just take a quiet moment to reflect on your climate joy. Is it your garden, the beach, time with family? Is it making something with your hands? Is it growing and cooking food? Is it systems and noticing patterns like me? First thing. Second, just step outside, breathe deeply, think about that thing and feel the joy in you. And now this is the thing I would love you to do. Go and talk to somebody about it. Talk to one person. Even better, talk to 7 people. When you see starlings, birds flying in a murmuration, they only communicate with the 7 starlings round them. Share your joy with other people and let it ripple out.
Share your joy with other people. What are your final words, Lou?
Just that this has in itself been a joy, Francis.
Yeah.
I'm so honoured that you asked me to be part of it. And I have absolutely loved every moment. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in and who is watching. And feel free to get in touch with me on social media. And let's continue to talk. Let's continue to spread that joy. Francis, final question for you. What is your climate joy?
My climate joy is seeing our water bodies very clean. Anytime I see our water bodies very clean, I feel fulfilled. But if our water bodies are polluted, then it makes me worry. So my climate joy is seeing our water bodies very clean, crystal clean. Yes. It's good to have you on the show. So happy that you were able to make it to the show today. We hope to see you again next time. And I hope our viewers have enjoyed the show. If you have enjoyed the show, kindly hit the subscribe button on YouTube This will motivate us to continue to bring you such insightful conversations. This is where we'll draw our curtain to a close for today's episode. We hope to see you again next weekend for another exciting episode. Lou, we are so grateful once again for being on the show. We hope to see you again.
I hope so, Francis.
Yes.